Hi, my name is Gary Atkins. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to put together educational programs for yourself as well as new and veteran massage therapists. The first of this series I'd like to present is on preventing and treating career injury. And there are many different elements to that I'd like to look over. I'd look over burnout, as well as biomechanics, about being able to set boundaries, and also some helpful hints that I found over the years in treating myself, and things that I've learned. And I would probably say one of the big lessons that I've learned is about being aware of my own body. Every single morning, I have to take inventory. How do I feel that morning? Am I sore? Are certain areas of my body giving me a problem? I need to address that right away. Many times I end up using ice more than anything, but I'm constantly working on myself and moving and doing all that I can. I can't wait to get worked on by somebody. I have to work on myself. So every single morning, I'm always checking things out. I'm moving. I start my day off with a couple deep knee squats. I'm always moving my shoulders. And how's my elbows? How's my wrists? How's my forearms today? How's my back? So I'm constantly analyzing and looking at all these different things. And I will take many continuing education classes when I can. I'm always trying to learn more and always trying to better myself, but also to innovate, also to try things out that I never thought before that might possibly work. I have come up with other things as far as posture and body mechanics maybe some people haven't thought of, or something that worked for me but not for somebody else. And I try and go over a few of those in this program. Maybe not something that I subscribe to, but it definitely made me think about this a little bit differently. So I hope you enjoy this with me, and please feel free to leave any comments.
Preventing and treating career injury. As a massage therapist, you're in a profession where the risk for burnout is relatively high, which means you need to be extra vigilant about self-care. Don't worry though, with a little knowledge, awareness, and fine-tuning, you can create an arsenal of physical, emotional, mental, and strategies to help to keep burnout at bay. Understanding your physical limits. First, you have to work within your physical limits. According to a 2012 University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing study, nurses who worked 10 hours or longer shifts had 2.5 times greater burnout. Strangely, however, these nurses had no idea they were heading towards burnout, reporting being happy with their flexible schedules. So be sure to track your energy level so you have a good idea when you're feeling most tired, irritable, or ineffective, and adjust your schedule accordingly. Your feet were sore and your body was tired, and you could have quit, which is why it felt so good when you didn't. I hear that all the time, that you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. The one problem is you're not listening to your body. Your body will tell you if you're pushing too hard, that you need to slow down. Today is not a good day to push. You also need to take care of injuries when they first appear, no matter how mild the symptoms, since early treatments tend to be both conservative and effective. Listen to your own body, no matter what others are telling you. Our bodies send us messages. If you listen to your body when it whispers, you won't have to hear it scream. Take a break, get exercise, or get rest. But we've been disconnected that mind-body connection. Our mind says keep going, keep going. In short, we're ignoring the very signs we should be heeding. This is a place that I used to work at in Bloomfield, Bally Total Fitness. In it, I had a small room at the men's locker room, which is a walled, tiled room, high humidity in the men's locker room. The problem is, I didn't have very much space to move around in. So that means that my body mechanics that I thought that I knew didn't do me any good. I ended up having to work a lot of times on my knees, but of course I had to overdo it. And I kept working, and I didn't listen to my body. Eventually I ended up having to pay for it. The bad news is the burnout rate within the industry has been estimated at 50 to 88% within the first 3 to 5 years after graduation, according to a study completed by ABMP. Enrollment statistics seem to support this, with over 50,000 students enrolling per year, with 45,000 that leave the field annually. The good news is, if you approach your job knowing the physical demands involved and accordingly taking steps to manage them, you should be fine. There's thousands, probably millions worldwide of people that stay in the industry for decades. These folks have learned the right way to apply themselves within the profession, manage their schedules effectively, and take good care of their body to avoid repetitive strain injuries. Body mechanics and effective posture. So this woman was a picture that I took on a recent class I was teaching, and as you can see, her upper back was bent, and it shouldn't be. What should be happening is that we should be having our back nice and straight at all times, just like you were landing an airplane on it. If we need to bend forward, we should hinge at our hips only. That way, you're protecting your back. Your back is becoming stronger every time you do that. So we can do everything that we need to do, but we're just hinging the wrong part. We need to hinge our hips instead. So when we talked to her, I also used kinesiology tape to show her the effective type of a posture, and she said it felt funny at first, but after a while she got used to it. And this woman is on the road to not having any more back pain. They say that the most effective type of posture is asymmetrical standing. So our direction of force is going from our shoulders down into our hands or our wrists, and the rest of our body weight is moving forward. So in a sense, we're using our body weight to do this. So it is effective, but the main thing is keep your back straight. With this, they're tucking their pelvis down under. The therapist's bodies are compressed through their midlines. Because the shoulders are unsupported by the spines, the arms are working too hard. Same thing if your table is too high. If your table is high, you're using your arms more. But everybody says, well, it hurts my back if my table is low. But if you adopt the right type of a posture, as far as your hips, you shouldn't have an issue. So with this here, nice straight back, everything is lined up just right, and it minimizes the strain. Release of the pelvic floor and hips results in better body alignment, better grounding through the legs, and greater efficiency of movement. Use of a hydraulic table. We can raise and lower it when we need to, and it prevents a lot of strain. Also, the type of table height that you have. They say that a good position is your knuckles, but I feel that you should go all the way down to your fingertips. That way you are encouraged to use your body and your body weight instead of your arms and hands. Table height considerations. If you can't adjust your table, a footstool can give you added leverage. A large client would mean lowering your table even further. If you have limited space to work in, use your forearms instead of your hands. With clients that require more pressure, stand further away from the table and lean with all of your body weight. If your table is too high, you must generate pressure with your arms. Feet positioning. This can also sometimes really help to make sure you have a nice wide base of support. Position your feet to provide a wide base of support. Point your toes in the direction of the stroke. This prevents you from undue stress on your joints. Keeping your feet together could cause you to lose your balance. We don't want to do that. Feet position. Keep one foot forward of the other with the weight on the back foot. Shoulder joint. Always keep your scapula or glenohumeral joint facing downward. If it's rotated downward, the torso is above and behind the joint and communicates the weight directly through the joints. If we have a tendency to lean too far forward, if the glenohumeral joint is facing upwards, the weight of the torso has to be communicated to the arm indirectly by pulling downward at the joint. This would strain the shoulder joint as well as neck muscles. Try and keep your elbow within 12 inches of the side of your body, so don't overextend. Don't reach more than 12 inches from your body with any stroke. It's ineffective and it puts strain on other muscles. Always keep your shoulder down and your torso above. Use of the elbow and forearm. The elbow is an extremely useful tool for compression, but not for stroking. Pressure should be initiated slowly and applied gradually. Always avoid highly sensitive areas such as the face, neck, and groin. The forearm is better suited tool for stroking. So with this, in this illustration, there's almost no strain on the person's body whatsoever. Because of the sharp edges of the bones of the forearm and the location of the nerves, using the forearms and elbows at certain angles could be painful. Use your forearm whenever possible, but be careful if you feel any kind of nerve tingling or anything like that. All you have to do is just change the position of your forearms or rotate them differently. Use of your hands. Relaxed wrist and hand is always best if you're using your forearms. The joints and muscles of the hands are small in comparison to other areas of the body. They're also relatively fragile and are extremely vulnerable to overstrain injuries. The hands are better suited to precise and specific work. Make sure that your wrist and hands are always relaxed. If they're not, the muscles of the hands and forearms will become fatigued faster and you lose sensitivity in feeling the tissues you're working. Keep petrissage strokes to a minimum. Grasping strokes such as petrissage are stressful on the hands and forearms. With petrissage, develop a rhythm of rocking forward as you grasp the tissue, pulling of the tissue as you rock back. The only way to compress this tissue in this illustration is by using your forearms and your hands, which wears you out. I try and really minimize any kind of petrissage strokes at all. Use of your hands. Use your hands like a midden for grasping. I always try and keep my fingers together. That way you have 4 or 5 fingers instead of just 1 or 2. Using grasping movements with your fingers separated will fatigue your hands and joints much faster. If we want to use fingers or thumbs to transmit force to the client, the joints that are applying the force are in alignment with each other and are stabilized in whatever manner possible. Then sideways strain is eliminated. While doing any pressure point work, be sure to stabilize or support the joints of the fingers. And especially with the thumb, reinforce the joints. I never would just stand on somebody with my thumb. It's too vulnerable. Never hyperextend the wrist. Make sure the angle of the wrist is no more than 110 degrees to avoid compression of the nerves that runs through the wrist. Remember that your hands are not meant for deep work. Use your forearms whenever possible. And finally, pay attention to your body. Get to know your own body and use the mechanics of your own body. Your own application of body mechanics will be somewhat different from anyone else's, although the same general principles apply. Laura Ann Green says poor body mechanics are not the only causes of injury, and good body mechanics are not the only elements needed to prevent injury. A massage therapist who never works out, has hypermobile wrists, suddenly increases the number of massages she does per week, and uses her thumbs 95% of the time is likely to get injured, no matter how solid her body mechanics are. To effectively prevent injury and physical burnout, we must adjust our technique, become aware of our own physical advantages and disadvantages. Exercise is helpful, stretching or yoga, improving our posture. Understand the physiology and warning signs of injury. Practice good body mechanics, among other things. Mental and emotional burnout. Burnout occurs when highly committed people lose interest and motivation. Burnout is more than being overworked. Burnout is a feeling of intense, long exhaustion and hopelessness caused by exposure to relevant stress. Symptoms include emotional exhaustion, alienation from job-related activities, and reduced performance, to name a few. The real culprit for burnout is the frustration and anger we experience when we lack control, face unclear job expectations, lack social support outside of work, or face dysfunction in the workplace via misaligned values and/or people. As massage therapists, we have boundaries that must be maintained between the client and ourselves, or professional boundaries. Setting personal boundaries only begins with saying the word no and meaning it when we're asked to do something that doesn't serve us. In our personal lives, setting boundaries can include asking for what we need emotionally from those close to us, dealing with bullying from those who feel it's okay to walk all over us, and limiting time to those who drain us and our energy. Personal goal setting. The other big contributing factor to burnout is lack of direction. If you don't know where you're headed or what you're trying to accomplish, then how can you know what you should be doing? When you have no direction, it's extremely easy to get pushed and pulled in the energy currents of those around us, both at work and at home. Burnout awareness. Typically, burnout will occur in hard-working, hard-driven people who become emotionally, psychologically, or physically exhausted and don't realize it. You're at risk of burnout where you find it difficult to say the word no, and additional commitments or responsibilities. You have been under intense and sustained pressure for some time. You have an incorrect belief that you're accomplishing less. You have a loss of a sense of purpose and energy. You have a feeling of loss of control. You can avoid mental burnout by ensuring what you do remains fun. There's a limit to your mental energy that you should respect. As you get better at what you do, people may want increasing amounts of your time and will rely on you more and more. It's easy for commitments to get bigger. People tend to be quite happy to consume other people's mental resources without worrying about the consequences. You must learn to say no to commitments that you don't want to take on. Otherwise, you'll be in severe danger of burning out as you become unhappy with your situation. Examine other areas of your life that you're generating stress. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. Every morning I like to wake up my joints. So I'll first start with neck rolls, going from side to side. Full range of motion. If I happen to have a tight spot, I'll just hold it for a minute. Wakes everything up. Shoulder rolls. Clockwise, counterclockwise. More tightness in the back. I'll just stretch it around. My torso. Could get your arm involved. Wrists. Clockwise, counterclockwise. Each joint that we have 2 in our thumbs and then 3 in our fingers. So if you can, rotate each individual joint. Little things we don't think very much about, but it really pays off. How am I feeling today? Is there anything that I need to address? For me, it's probably more of my wrist more than anything. Sometimes it's my forearm muscles, my shoulders, my neck, or hips. So always good to rotate your hips, clockwise, counterclockwise. Before I go to bed at night, a lot of times I like to take and then cross my leg over and then push my knee to stretch out the side of my hip, and it also goes into my back. Feel free to add a little bit extra. Little things we just don't think about on a regular basis. There's our ankles. Our toes. Sometimes I'll be laying in bed and I'll just do ankle circles. Clockwise, counterclockwise, just a few times. One that I found that's very helpful is using a rubber band for your hands, because we're always constantly grasping. So that's the result of your palm muscles as well as your forearm muscles. And we're grasping way too much. The problem is that these are overworked. These on the back are inhibited. They're underworked. So if we can strengthen these, it's going to take pressure off of these. So if you can find the widest rubber band that you can find, I'm going to place it over my fingernails, and I'm going to open my hands at least 5 to 10 times each. After that, you should notice that they're a little bit fatigued. That's because they're working and they're underworked. If that's not enough resistance for you, then you can double the rubber band, or you could use multiple rubber bands. Try and get into that habit of doing this on a regular basis. One way to do that is to put a rubber band around your turn signal in your car. That way, when you're stopped at a light or in traffic, you'll remember to do your rubber band exercise. With our wrist, I use this one a lot. I'm compressing my wrist as I'm flexing and extending at the same time. Maybe with a little bit of traction, but not too much. Sometimes they'll pop and click, and I just have to keep those mobile because we're straining these way too much during the day. Nice gentle wrist pull. Nothing too hard. You don't want to try and adjust it or pop it or anything like that, but just a nice little decompression. That's all we're doing, is just compressing and decompressing. This area of our thumb is the one that we use the most. It's called our thenar eminence. And there are 4 muscles that help us to bring our thumb inwards like that. These muscles become hypertonic. They're so tight, and we need to work on these and always stretch them as much as we can. It's a little bit more on the aggressive side, but I've started using iStem tools, instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. And all you need is just to find a straight edge. You could use a quarter, a credit card, just anything that has an edge to it. You could even use a spoon. So if I get in there with a spoon, I can gently work that tissue. Now this is a little bit more on the aggressive side. You have to be careful. Just a few strokes is all that you need. But it really helps. From there, I'll get into thumb squeeze. With thumb squeeze, I'm going to take my fingernails of my opposite hand and I'm going to push into that area. And then I'm going to close my hand around my fingernails. It really gets in there. Same thing on the other side. Place my fingernails into the thenar eminence and then slowly close my hand around my fingernails. Another one to treat this area is to push down on my thumb with my opposite index finger. And with my thumb hanging out with nothing to do, I'm going to get in there and then stroke that at the same time. Index finger on the thumb. With my thumb hanging out, then I'm going to get in there and then stroke that. With our forearm muscles, we need to concentrate in this area as well because that's helping us to grasp. The muscles on the palm side of the flexors, there are 5 of them, and they all attach on the medial epicondyle right here. These become so tight. So if we can, we need to stretch back into extension, and that's stretching all of the forearm flexors. You could also get in there and then take your thumb and stretch your thenar eminence. The other side. You could go up against a wall, up against a massage table, just about anything that you can find. But you should also stretch the other side, the extensor side. There are 3 muscles that attach on the lateral epicondyle. So by stretching your wrist down like that, careful don't injure your wrist. It might be kind of just a little bit, and you can feel that tension all the way in through here. To be a little bit more specific as far as the forearm muscles, you could clamp your fingers around the extensor side and also bring your wrist back into extension. And that's going to magnify that tension in there, so it really gets in there. It's like when you were using your fingernails on the thenar eminence. And then the other side. This feels really good. I've got to hold out for a few seconds. And we also have to do the flexor side too. So flexor side, and then flex. Flexor side, flex. Really deep into the forearms are the supinators and pronators. The supinator muscle will help us to supinate upwards, like we're holding our hand up for a cup of soup. So if we take and bend our elbow and then rotate your hand as far as you can go, and then take your other hand and then give it a little bit extra stretch. And that really stretches the supinator muscle. So on this side, make sure to bend your elbow, grasp, and then give it a little bit extra. Not too far. Then there's pronation. So pronation is the opposite. So pronating is going downwards like that. Bending your elbow, take it to its edge, and then give it a little bit extra. I know it looks kind of weird. Bending the elbow, pronate, give it a little bit extra. And the last to finish up with the forearms is the ringing. So by grasping the forearm, then I'm going to squeeze and rotate. So this is a cross-fiber friction move on every single forearm muscle that we have. It feels great. You could even get your knee into it if you wanted to really lean into it. If there's one to do, this would be it. Our scaling muscles are constantly shortened. So we're always hunching up like this. So we always need to treat these as best we can. They're on the side of our neck, and they go underneath our clavicle, and they help us to raise our ribs in forced inspiration. So if you can just bring your ear to your shoulder, nice and gentle, because these are so tight. Try and drop your shoulder. You could also look down a little bit. You could look up if you wanted. Come out of it slow and then go to the other side. Ear to the shoulder. Drop the other shoulder. Look down. Look up. If you happen to have issues as far as your elbows, this would be tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. If you find your olecranon, which is the tip of your elbow, and then if you go to the outside edge with a bent elbow, there's a nib right there. So when you find that, go south 1 inch and then dig in all the way to the bone and cross fiber. If that's sore, that means you could possibly have inflammation of your lateral epicondyle, which would be tennis elbow. So just by cross-fibering that a few seconds, that's all you do. Then I would ice it if it's really sore for a minute or two. On the inside edge, there's the olecranon. Go medial. There's a nib right there, and I go south 1 inch. That's the flexor tendon. 5 muscles attached there. If that's really sore, then just do a few strokes and then ice it for a minute or 2 afterwards. I try and check this every single day. Olecranon goes south 1 inch. Cross fiber friction for a few seconds. Go as deep as you can. And then ice it if it's sore. If it's not sore, you don't have to ice it. Medial epicondyle goes south 1 inch. Cross fiber friction. It's always good to check these every day if you can. That way, it'll never get bad. You won't ever have to worry about it. And you can get that from doing just about anything. A nice way to release your neck and your traps at the same time, because we're always hunching too much like that. So if you could, bring your hand behind you, grasp your wrist, and then pull your wrist, and now you have a chicken wing. Bring your ear to the chicken wing side. This stabilizes your trapezius and your shoulder. And then do the other side. Grasp the opposite wrist, pull. Now you've got a chicken wing. Bring your ear to the chicken wing side. And like we did earlier, we can't forget our back of our shoulders, because they're always strained because our pecs are so dominant in the front of our shoulders. So by bringing your arm over, touching your opposite shoulder, and then taking your elbow and pushing it backwards, and then now you're feeling that stretch all the way in through here. And then doing the other side, hand to the shoulder, pushing backwards towards your body so you can stretch, and then you can feel that all the way in through there. Always good to throw in a nice little overhead stretch. Our triceps don't give us too many problems, but it's still a good idea to stretch those out too. So if we take our hand and place it on the back of our shoulder, now I'm pushing the tricep and the elbow backwards. So I'm touching my shoulder and then I'm pushing the elbow backwards. So this next one will stretch out the pecs, as well as it helps to mobilize our scapula so it will float over our ribs. If you place your hands behind your back, then I'm going to bend forward a little bit, and then I'm going to raise my arms. Getting down on one knee, place my hands on my knee, and then lean forward. So we want to stretch our hip flexors out in front, as well as our quadriceps. Hamstrings. Finding a chair or a stool. Try and lean forward to stretch hamstrings. You could also place your foot on the stool, lean forward, and then push the stool away, and then that's going to get into the hamstrings even more. forward, and then push the stool away. Standing up against the wall, and we're stretching our calf. While we're back here, we could also grasp our foot and stretch our quad. If you go backwards even more, then you can stretch the hip flexor as well. If you happen to have a towel, you can place that behind your back. If you have a towel, you can place this behind your back and try and inch your fingers towards each other by pulling on the towel. So with this towel, you could also do the saw. Back behind you, and then pull up, and then pull down. Pull up, pull down. Great for releasing the shoulder capsule. If you still have your towel handy, you get on the floor, put it around your foot, and then pull. Try and bring your leg centered, and we're stretching more of our hamstrings. If you don't have your hamstrings, see if you can hook your hands right there. It's a great stretch for hamstrings. Arching your back. Go up as high as you can and then go as low as you can. Stick out your rear, look up. And you could finish with stretching your abdomen and going into a plank and just breathing. Strengthening our core to protect our back. Okay, that's it. I hope I gave you some useful information. Please be sure to comment. Thanks very much.